equals a new anxiety of influence equals. By Billy McBride. 1. I am not a sadomasochist, and the mean are doomed to forever seek such truths, and I neither like pain or humiliation, to farther out their world, striking us all, for those feelings are cruel feelings, we talk about their triumph ever and the like, and I do not support sadomasochism as a model for reading, so I never mind its wrath, as if by a struggle while reading, as if relinquishing a readiness below, a poor reader can finally achieve pleasure, from nightly dervishes of which there is no ending path, from an author, rare to the eyes, as if it was the author who is committed to our garden of thought, and who gets to grant the reader's pleasure. So I will begin in medias res, do, mount up mortality, my earthly work, which is the organic way of many poets, as more still lurk, who wish not to have a structure, with their art that is to make a rainy dash, such that cause and effect, as gathers to your palm when coming to, become more central to narration than content. Harold Bloom speaks about anxiety, and no greater soul has felt a greater wash, being a warning of a danger, like a hat blown off in those whipping hours. And, yet what can be less dangerous to fill our minutes up than reading where the heart inside shall seek its gift alone? If an author influences a poet coming later, with noble powers, I understand that, with healing pleasures, that it is not an anxious relationship or worldly junk. I wanted to write this as an epic poem, to tap the pleasure out, its milky flood, like Lucretius's equals de rerum naturae equals, a piece of love to air out 1 minute more, and yet prose will work better for me to pound the wind that's had with fire and blood, to get to the points which I will be making in the shine I seek going to some grassy place. Bloom has said that poetry, hunting its turn with hotter gait, is not something that can heal us, it misses that act to fathom thought and face, but it can make a reader more aware, and so once more these tests for roughest happiness and nights of anarchy bring out our days. And, Bloom reflects upon Friedrich Nietzsche's understanding, making a contest victory, ringing that bell, that pain is related to the memorable even as an idle start that comes out well. In my imagination, my muse therefore sets this to post: pain is only one of our bothers, to turn away from those truthful pains, as interpretive readers, who push for a new sublime. There are 11 bothers, celestial witnesses, geniuses forever knocking who plague us readers, who are permanently selfish but who are hooked on life, but they do not come from any authors with monumental wounds to move us. These 11 bothers are represented, their breaths divine again triumphantly come as 11 symbolic brothers, who cannot save us though we may be saved by forgiveness, 11 brothers whom we need to forgive with no evil kisses of ours. I will explain, in order to read our best as if questing for that shining head of sunshine speaking to us in books, oozing its red, its fiery point or airball ending dim. The critic as a poet is Harold Bloom on his hot rod rising infinite, his eye forever rounding, and a defense of poetry, in fortune's fun, is what I intend in this my own prose epic as something that makes up the soul and as a prose poem, a lighter tale. Therefore, I need a muse to make this work, over all I owned of heaven, and all I lost of hell, for I will have to say things bewitched to rap against the sky, which are unseen to human eyes in dimmest peace. My own angels I have known in my life, shall forwards be, and shall do as semi-muses who are prized throughout the nothingness of night. They say that they will take up this job, whereon their grassy tracks their rays shall stitch up the whole. William Shakespeare's equals Henry V. Equals is chorus, as if a son who crossed his arms in paradise, needed a muse of fire, in its place and play coming out of certainty, but my own angels will be just right to bug my maker for more delight, and for what I will need to put forth in first of day with light to meet these eyes. I will therefore begin in medias res, as a sea so full that dumps its waves, as a critic as poet with bending hands together pulling off this my epic prose poem to thin forever out. Anxiety is something that, my reader, I now behold with a better chant, that I feel we need to branch out beyond once more for the green. It is not just an anxiety, begging the mounting shade to cut us short, which will be my subject, adieu my secret star, but 11 starring problems, their noisy celebrating, which are 11 bothers, still up again to make their feelings clean, who are 11 brothers, who bug our peace with cruelest winds. Therefore, I will introduce with my own airy manners the widest swear, what I hope to be a useful diagram to counsel when pleasures are most due, which is the other tree in Eden, the cruelest tree that puts an end to our play, not the tree of life, the Ein Sof, that plays the role that we might climb, but the tree of death, which cannot tell anybody what truth is for, also called the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, establishes a truth that we have been beat. I have a strong sense of spirituality, and my hopeful questions come, and also I know about false beliefs, that come cold to unhappy minds, which are also called hallucinations. The point of my diagram, of more of a beauty and happy life, of the tree of death, itself cursing the air, is to show it is not divine, not something that in mercy waits, but it is hallucinatory, something not friendly causing friendship itself to lag, it is a schizophrenic bother and must be stopped. And, poets are not to blame for that fire of fire, for other people's hallucinations, for the wisdom that does not come, for their own schizophrenic ways, a flood and fear, of feeling because the poets, all who labor in the sun for simple flowers, do not and cannot influence any reader's anxiety in the calm heart carried to its home. We read experientially, and let out our hearts to cry that it is not right. But when we read well, with our kindest faces showered, neither stories or authors cause unhappiness like the seashore's blues, whatever anxieties we have while loving in our many turns while reading or thinking about it afterward in our lives for sense and justice in the world for peace. Angel ora tiferedo with me. A new anxiety of influence equals. By Billy McBride. 2. 1 plan, to fire up a fire, that my work, a fancy tale to fill up the hour, on the influence process might take, if the reader does not have a heart sick for power, is in the form of 11 books, ones that are calm which my heart can carry home, one for every bothering brother, as my heart returns new questions to their ears, each of whom represents one particular sort of problem, in this family so to love in many turns, to reading, as earth's many eyes do, at one's very best, for the greater stuff of pleasures. Waking me up from my sleep, Harold Bloom's equals the anxiety of influence equals, letting out its heart to cry, is grouped, as he has labored in the sun, into 6 chapters for conquest of it all, and for his 6-fold system of making up a way of revisionary rhetoric where, be that what it may, life's interpretations own a loss, and where he envisions, so much establishing their own way, 6 figurative tropes at play that are staged in daring ways, and that are defenses, roaring for more, against earlier poets, adding to their present calls, by later poets or readers who may turn out to be heroes that fall. I, for a job of victory of the very highest, consider myself an liberal ironist which has a gentler view, and which is the terminology that is in time for pleasures, that Richard Rorty invented to describe, as if cracking a curtain upon someone, a sensitive person who is always on the lookout, even to mend the all, and even while in her extreme uncertainty, to avoid causing any cruelty, which is so much around in anonymity, to others. In my little fits like bees within the reeds, Rorty's liberal ironist will pay my time for a busy day's fuss, and is what I have in mind to seek once more to cut into the present, and to redescribe in my own system, anew or see, how my thoughts on influence, laying down or lifting for broken nights, differ from Bloom's. My liberal irony, chasing out its hope, prevents me from fearing not being lifted up, and from attributing to any author any fault, sparking that victory, of ill-influencing, by any finest song, any poet or reader, puffed out of space, being born. Therefore, though my own angels, sitting outside the world, can be semi-muses, for throngs of heads, for this prose poem epic, filling like a country air, of mine, I, suddenly going through, and coming back with a gift, will also state here upon its given land that the angel of Richard Rorty, who has found the time to go about the bloom, and who is my spiritual brother now, will help guide, gathering up for room, my work here as if my soul will lift, and as if he were also a semi-muse. And, of my own angels, whose good hearts do not forget the poor, there are 33 angel wives to dream it out, though I made, forever at its top in a greatest play, a helpful chart that will drink up the fancy, and that I call M.O.A.T. 36, to prepare, in a masterful way, to take exit as if from a flight, and where 3 are absent, and some others are included, but not sacrificed as I please. This M.O.A.T. 36 chart, where everything gets done that all may fit, will be helpful to touch upon later to hold it all in place because it maps out the love within and the specific jobs of my angels from their funny places it pertains to many things, adding more of their love, including this prose epic. So in some way, with a living face, as in the Kabbalah, I will volunteer it, and I wish to know what to hear, and to have some things to question reasonably and to propose which verge upon both physical and metaphysical matters open to remark and for other peace. But, overall Bloom's sixfold figuration, with readiness for day, and my 11-fold bothering brotherhood maps, throwing out the news, will relate to each other in a way as containers do the contained, gaining wisdom of these celestial ones who know what poems do what. In Bloom's equals the anxiety of influence equals, his digression has a destination, and he states, because he is quite the teacher, how the influence process is some message to gossip about, and is not always a benign one, like the clouds of time, between early poets, who seem to enforce heaven's drops, and later ones, who fish out their memories from a fair doe. This is where I, with my own swaggering pleasures, differ from him, and the purpose of my message for you, reader beautiful, of my revision of his book, A Restless Creation, on Anxiety and Influence, and its tight figure 8. Not passing up any password, Bloom's revisionary psychic tropes have a victory song, and have meant much to me, and I, by rephrasing them for any coming celebration, lovingly still wish to not mask the matter, but to hold them up in their powdery sprinkles as for great uses, not being blocked from my goal. There is an inevitability to influence, which challenges and tests my luck, and which contains, in professional reflections, a reader or poet, inspired to fiddle with love, being influenced by an earlier poem in our shiny world, and this is influence proper, which a morning makes hold in its rest, which is good but to have nothing to speak about its beauty, as if coming before the fall, misses its power to intimate even more pleasure. So much is in influence, in not being captain entirely of one's will, and it takes awareness of it to appreciate it as we stand beneath the sky, as it were, of another, but it is good health to us, like coming back to a dance, and anxiety does not come from its goodness, or its boundless wilderness, but from elsewhere to block another's goals. Equals Angel Kabbalah with me. Equals a new anxiety of influence equals. By Billy McBride. 3. Is received wisdom, by some happiness dealing out, supposed to be taken literally, as a winning tale, or is it better, coming around in time, when it comes, like a river of sky, to think of it, to seek nothing more from it, as but poetic substance figuratively? Bloom, subtracting what could snare me here, speaks, freshly as ever, about John Milton's character, Satan, as the archetype of the modern poet riffing their own lines. My angels, however, do not fool my head, and they are different than Milton's angels, in their wall light infinite, for they are neither fallen in any way, but are like a lasting starlight, and nor are they just literary characters like those who oppose God. And, I, atop this world and at peace, believe that everybody goes to heaven, after their days are past, because if there was any hell, colored so late in the gray, then we would have to approve of it, something not that bright, since God would have made it for renewing the divine for deserving people to go to, in the right time after they die. I, not measured by this bother, don't think God, who is not downwards kept, is like that. Beauty, in its tearful context, follows me around, and so when I read about any elegant plan, already having beauty around me, I, question-marking all, look for wisdom stepping my notes up for more. Pleasure too, guiding us to the end, can either be durable or transitory, according to Percy Bysshe Shelley, who loved to live, but concerning my 11 bothers as brothers, Mary, that's a line, they work against my pleasure, which is happily tapped and checked, as a reader, having more art to come, so as to keep me from passing down the light from my eyes, and from reading my best as if in a deep dream at times. I, wisely shading its loads, have a long history with a way of brightness with Harold Bloom's equals the anxiety of influence equals, which has been an end to dig, and after hundreds of readings of it, I, even in its flood rushed, still find new ways that catch me up to its climb, that Bloom's vision moves me as a reader and poet upon his ancient wings. Friedrich Nietzsche, in his Storm Unfolding, speaks about how if pain, which we finally need an end to, can be given meaning in our world for some wisdom or some time, then the less banal that pain feels across our longer seas. My angel brother, Angel Richard Rorty, a true wonder, in this work that I comment myself to in order to know a work of mine, must be understood, for heaven's own sake, to be separate from the other 11 brothers whose day is war, for they are not just my brothers coming clustered, but any readers who struggles with them who can ruin reality for them. Shelley, crying and sighing, speaks about giving up easier pleasures of hundreds of remarks, for the rewards of more difficult ones that hammer forever. And, overcoming superstition, as much he wanted then, is one theme, lending itself to a hymn, of Lucretius's epic equals de rerum naturae equals where everything's everything. And, so my theme of a crucial bridge is that authors who change our music are never bad influences, even the oldest poets as well, but that they are good ones who light the world or afterworld, and whatever bad influences happen, fiddlesticks, while reading any literature staring at such love, come only from those 11 representative brothers and their childish points. Another way to see how the darkness builds, and to understand these 11 representative and interpretive brothers, bothering our threshold, is psychologically in the end something that we can handle because they represent hallucinations against heaven's dear way when a reader, who would only want to make it sweeter, ever begins to see the author and time thereabouts as a cause of their own anxieties, separating them with strife, that happen while reading, towering them with visions, blaming the author, being hyperbolically ruled, for their own sufferings presently leading them against reading well, rather than the hallucinations at the center of their consciousness. Equals angel honey with me. Equals a new anxiety of influence equals. By Billy McBride. 4. My text, equals It's President Day. Equals, hopping over to be read, is a book about a sort of practical wisdom by means of influence, one with no contempt for love, from reading books. My angels and I, without any emptiness or even weariness, make use of a phenomenon called coat, which initially is the flip side to the M.O.A.T. project, the song of our minds, where we sell whatever we can, that is M.O.A.T. related after M.O.A.T. is built for charities that milk the imagination. Equals It's President Day. Equals, that book of notes from my heart, in other words, is one of my Merkaba experiences, a sunny reality of going to the heaven of machine cloud for a short visit, though now I still have a web of questions. The idea of coat, in the way we used it in Equals It's President Day. Equals, as autumn light does an old window, is something we learned from reading Equals The Magic Mountain Equals, with sweetest joy, by Thomas Mann, whose cultured book stands by the feeling for any and every happiness, and was filled with ideas of what to learn, who to read or listen to, how to do that, and more, for us who are given to pain. In short, Mann's work is not against our greatness, and has a wisdom for readers, in an ethical time for peace, who want to branch out to learn new things, reading from the book The Tale for an Hour. Our first experience of such a blast of light, and of such branching out, was named Code, and it led us straight to the heaven of machine cloud, like a star in the blackness, in our book, with an ironic air and a time to be seen. Everything was done in the proper order, the celestials were present with their mothering hearts, though I did not know I was doing it that way, unto majestic eternity, for things to become divine, my old life, beautifully mine. What I, who had the time to be within the winds of time, have learned from Mann and Equals The Magic Mountain Equals, overcoming for peace, is that his art provoked wisdom that very morning of how to live well. This wisdom, which is a time for conversation, can be viewed as improvised variations on imitations under the perfect sky or woeful night. In fact, it is a competitive contest with the mind that is enough, and with imitation that wisdom holds. And, all practical wisdom, with its genius of peace, requires revealed wisdom, which is thought in general that does not divide us from its depth. Influence wisdom, which is not shut off from love, is not revealed wisdom but instead it is instructional, powered wisdom from texts, which are beautifully done, and which can be doubled up like plays within plays, as influences within influences, starring the way that leads us down many helpful rabbit holes to question them over our days. That wisdom comes from wisdom is what I have learned in the miraculous song from Ralph Waldo Emerson's essay, Equals Experience Equals, Riding its Scholarly Ramparts. And Emily Bronte's Equals Wuthering Heights Equals is even bolder than Emerson's essay, and it is so remarkable so as not to be ignored. His suggestions, crossing for beauty, are as a matter of fact, and he did not like reading novels, unfortunately, but Bronte's Equals Wuthering Heights Equals has a boldness like a beautiful night, and of a practical wisdom from life that sensitive readers, in the day's annihilation, might learn, that from novels too wisdom can be found in words dearer than the blare of men. And, So I must go against Emerson and his joyous dream to widen the range of many genres from which wisdom may be learned in the speckled present. And, this wider inclusiveness will also branch out, not in agony of its destination, beyond my main object, Bloom's own equals the anxiety of influence equals, for a piece of anything. Death, God personifying it, blesses us with life, with a Torah which is more life to a time without boundaries. Death sets laws, thinking of the dead apple's core, which the characters followed so as to survive in the beauty with the beauty of the early Torah from the later Torah's codes which are instructions and a way through its majesty. I, with the memories of those colors, am reading Torah, and my own equals Hawaiian sonnets and other poems equals, as essays as if they came across the fiery heavens in their Emersonian instruction, or provocation eternally wandering. The artist, Andy Warhol in a similar manner, miraculously, has taught me how to read art like words which have more height, that is to say, like an essay. He also teaches me the light of my soul to read my own art this way because it is not too late to be young. Johann Wolfgang von Goethe teaches life early enough in the piece This Night, in his autobiography, equals poetry and truth equals, and he expressed the need not to end the merriment that some truth has, and to live with and for wisdom and to function at its root. Intellectual poetry, writing anew with wit and sense, is a way of Goethe too, and it can be appreciated, in A Flood of Peace, that he states how nobody, even left to a sickness, is ever repulsed by their own presence and its boundless right. Equals angel honey with me. Equals a new anxiety of influence equals. By Billy McBride. 5. Of received wisdom, which can be seen as new fact, for instructional wisdom, wisdom for wisdom, one interprets wild possibilities and gets to the other, making a path, and achieves the correct choice as if, from the multiplying of sunshine, from wisdom's many words some of which we wish to last. Wisdom, by the love for what an author needs to state, in either case represents Chokmah, wisdom, the bliss of life, in the second Sephirot of the tree of life, Ein Sof, below heaven's golden gate. In this work of mine found in the present or in the past of a time before, which seeks to revise the theory of poetry, specifically in regards to from where influence comes, that is found in equals the anxiety of influence equals by Harold Bloom, I, to make existence bright, wish to engage a possibility staying strong, in a style which I, in my shining heart, use in my own epic book, equals Head Buttressia, a religious fantasy equals, where I have borrowed, with pages of pathways of so many words, a little bit from the style of Dante who has helped me with my time to divide and play. I read with a good attempt also antithetically so that this style, centered ever upon thought, has much to do with a teaching of mine, not pedantic, but provocative. Another book that has a hopeful glow, and that I wrote called equals The Celestial Image of Fire equals has a repetitive style as its vision, and I wish at times to use such a style for sitting down with these words for this my work with my angels, in a matter of glory, as semi-muses and guides who lay down this our narrative. Emily Dickinson's style was a road to genius, and it repeats her subject matter floating at last between what is between, but she substitutes the subject, like a light going forth, with the appropriate equivalent pronouns or nouns, in their masterful steps, so as to be consistent in her repetition and in her own subject matter within the trench of time. Dr. Hector Ozon, the founder of eidetic imaging psychology, had a normal head to once remark a final truth that we should be talking about the pleasure of influence rather than the anxiety of influence. His comment has had a mighty sailing, and is part of my starting point for this book that I am writing from my heart. And, in Percy Bysshe Shelley's essay, equals A Defense of Poetry, the poet, in A Web of Questions, speaks about how many of us pursue easier pleasures, aesthetically aching us, as we pass up the rewards from the even more difficult ones, sometimes those of love and wit. What Shelley has in mind is both a sense that crosses in the light that difficult pleasure, for the sweetest joys, will survive longer, like feelings for any and every happiness, because they are more memorable, and an understanding, of this sunny reality, that pleasure in its more difficult collection, not given into pain, is gathered by those who value originality and uniqueness more in art and literature, even for what might be understood as our celestial present. Gossiping plays a role, like blasts of light, in understanding reading and in tasting its peace. For gossiping is related, not condemned in time, to the dichotomy between containing and being contained, which is of the tale of the hour. A person, swaggering through any weathers, may gossip or be gossiped about, or both, and yet a great critic reading from a book like Harold Bloom did his share of gossiping, rounding about his own art, about the personalities in books, to whom we hear and connect, because that was part of his style as a great reader, even as a genius of peace. Angel Donna with me.